The Odyssey has completely divided conservatives.
I'm not going to give money to this movie. That would be part of the problem.
In a film about Greek mythology, not a single Greek actor.
So I know a lot of people were like, oh my God, Lupita Nyong'o is supposed to look like Diane Kruger. I don't know, Diane Kruger doesn't look very Greek. She's German. Lupita Nyong'o is a beautiful woman.
Where they've been crashing out for months because black people were cast in a Greek epic.
Anything created by white Europeans is treated like some generic all-you-can-eat buffet that everyone's allowed to stick their hands into.
Only for the film to be amazing, everybody to love it, and for it to be super successful, bringing in over $500 million already. To the point that some of them have had to admit that they actually liked the film.
Dave Rubin defended the Odyssey and said, "The movie was spectacular. I tweeted that it was an absolute masterpiece and the responses were psychotic."
But I'm Jew, welcome to the channel. Please like and share the video. Don't forget to sub. And shout out to Saji Sharma for his video on this topic. Now, let's get into it.
The Odyssey arrived last week, and I loved it. I watched it twice in theaters and will probably be going back soon. I don't think it's dramatic to say that this movie was an event. A Christopher Nolan film adaptation of one of the most iconic and well-known stories to date is nothing shy of a big deal. And it's safe to say that Nolan handled it with awe. From the strenuous filmmaking process to the use of heavy-ass and loud-as-hell IMAX cameras, to the film being almost entirely practical and shot on location. Yes, even the giant Cyclops was practical.
That's crazy.
This is Nolan's highest-rated movie. It's breaking box office records left and right, and yet somehow, conservatives are still having a hard time appreciating or even understanding this film. It's quite literally breaking them.
Because it goes against all their anti-woke, go woke or go broke propaganda that they've been pushing through the years. Where if a film actually showed diversity, it will fail. When it's going to be one of the most successful films of the year other than Spider-Man and Dr. Doom, probably.
It's not all conservatives. It's the keyboard warrior ones. The SJW conservatives that are fighting a culture war they think is more important than one of the greatest cinematic experiences of the year, if not the past few years. They thought that just because there was online backlash and criticism for a historical movie having race swaps, that everyone else in the world would feel the same. Well, the real world doesn't feel the same. In fact, the real world doesn't give a shit.
I talked about this a couple months ago when Elon Musk was on Twitter crashing out, losing his mind, and trying to rile up people to be angry at the casting of this movie because Lupita was playing Helen of Troy. Elon Musk is a huge racist at this point, right?
Thank you.
I don't even know if they saw her in the trailer or they were just mad when they saw the casting, like when they looked up who would be in the actual movie. But this dude is very mad, tweeting racist things like he always does because Christopher Nolan casted black actors in the Odyssey. Why does an actor's race matter? Oh, okay, now imagine it was this. They made it about historical figures.
What?
It's the weirdest thing in the world. That's not even what we're arguing about.
These chronically online conservatives are turning into the one thing they hate the most. They're turning into their perception of what a liberal is. A snowflake, a keyboard warrior, an SJW, someone with all bark and no bite.
Yeah, they're the biggest bully crybabies in the world nowadays. They try to bully everybody, then the second something doesn't go their way, they're the biggest victims in the world. They have to make up all these things to be mad about and act like they're victims about because they've never faced real oppression, real systematic racism, anything. They have nothing to cry about.
Someone who is so disillusioned from the realities of the outside world that when you hear what it is they believe, you can't help but laugh.
In a film about Greek mythology, keyword, Greek, not a single Greek actor was given a part in the Odyssey.
They're not mad about Greek actors not being given roles in the Odyssey. They're mad that there are black and brown actors in the Odyssey. They don't care about the white people in the Odyssey aren't Greek. Look at Matt Damon, look at John Bernthal. They don't care about that. They care that there are people of color in the Odyssey. They're just covering it up and using code words like they always do to be racist.
Their next huge embarrassing failure, maybe Hollywood can put together an all-Iranian cast for American Pie.
He thought about how dumb that was as soon as he said it.
And poetically enough, The Odyssey has been the perfect, unintentional Trojan horse for these conservatives. A movie that they thought was packaged as another one of Hollywood's woke films, filled with colored people and trans people.
I don't know where Brian's from. We are not colored here in the United States. Say people of color, black and brown people. Don't say colored. That historically has a whole different connotation, especially for black people in America.
Getting them all riled up and certain that this film was just going to be another product of the woke left propaganda machine. But then The Odyssey actually released and ended up being a conservative's wet dream, with conservative slash traditional themes being the main focus of the Odyssey story, the online right that was screaming and crying woke are now left confused and unsure of how to react.
It confused them because they don't have anything to rail against. They don't have anything to be mad about with this film, and even the things they were mad about really don't exist in the film. They're very minimal. So they're just really confused about how to spin this because they can't admit that they were wrong about the film to start with.
Even causing infighting between the conservatives that can look past their own racism and enjoy the movie, and conservatives that will do anything but give up their anti-woke shtick. But before we talk about the movie itself and how conservatives are reacting to it now, I want to talk about how they reacted to it then, before the Odyssey even came out. There were three main grievances that conservatives had when discussing Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey.
1. Race swap fatigue.
Race swap fatigue.
2. Gender ideology fatigue.
Gender ideology fatigue.
And 3. Zendaya fatigue.
None of those things are real, and the critical drinker is an asshole. He just does not like Zendaya for whatever reason. He's upset that she's cast in all these big films, all these big tentpole franchises, Doom, Spider-Man, The Odyssey, but he's not mad at any white actors that get cast in all these big roles and big films repeatedly.
Wait, Zendaya fatigue isn't a real one. I mean, none of these are real.
Right.
They're just excuses to be a bigot. This is the Critical Drinker, one of the biggest right-wing movie reviewers on YouTube. And while he hasn't reviewed The Odyssey quite yet, he has talked about the movie leading up to its release.
He actually just did a review on The Odyssey, which is hilarious. Because even as successful as The Odyssey is, even as well-reviewed as it is, he still couldn't admit it. So even his title is hilarious. The Odyssey, a disastrous triumph. What was disastrous about it? These people are crazy.
This video isn't good. In fact, none of his videos are because they aren't movie reviews. They're just, does this movie fit into the very slim, ideal political worldview?
They're all racist, sexist, anti-woke, right-wing propaganda, fake reviews. That's all they are.
That me and my audience has. And majority of the time, it doesn't. Giving Critical Drinker enough contentious content to make a living off of.
Let's start with the first one because, well, it's first. Now, you don't need me to tell you that there's been a frustrating rise in the race swapping of established characters.
Frustrating for who?
And in some cases, actual historical figures in recent years. And of course, it only ever goes in one direction. There's this weird assumption that every other culture, race, and ethnic group in the world are entitled to their own unique stories, history, and identity, and it all has to be carefully fenced off, protected, and respected. Whereas anything created by white Europeans is treated like some generic all-you-can-eat buffet that everyone's allowed to stick their hands into.
Okay, so the Critical Drinker and conservatives everywhere are saying that race swapping is bad because white people are having their history and culture being misrepresented by inaccurate portrayals done by colored people.
Stop saying colored, my God.
Well, they're not able to be cast in roles that are historically or culturally colored without receiving backlash.
That's 100% false. Hollywood has been casting white actors to play people of color, not colored, people of color in Hollywood for decades, damn near 100 years. Do you know how many times a white person has played a person of color throughout the history of Hollywood?
Oh, darling, I am sorry, but I lost my key.
But that was 2 weeks ago. You cannot go on or keep ringing my bell.
And usually when white people play these characters, they play them with the worst racist stereotypes imaginable. But they're crying now because black and brown people are getting roles that have historically been white. Man, get out of here. I think John Wayne played, what was it? Was it Attila the Hun?
Tempting.
Tempting but unwise, my brother. Listen to me.
There are moments for wisdom, Jamuga, then I listen to you. And there are moments for action, then I listen to my blood.
White people played Asians, Indians, they played Native Americans.
Seems as if I've never been away. Nothing has changed. Oh, no, can't go yet. Old lady, don't not here, boss.
Men shall be ruled by law.
What is going on with you, Maria? I feel pretty. Oh, so pretty.
The Turks pay me a golden treasure, yet I am poor.
Where do you come from? My name is Jesus.
My name, which was as fresh as Dion's visage, is now begrimed and black as my own face.
You want to make some big bugs? What did you say that? What? You did not ask to be fight. So perhaps that is not your fault.
It is only being virus and servo mechanisms and other such machine-type apparatus for the Peter sake.
All of a sudden, white people are up in arms because a black person is cast in a Greek fantasy film, The Odyssey.
My favorite part of Elon Musk being hella mad that Christopher Nolan is casting Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy is that Helen of Troy was born in an egg.
In this case, they're particularly upset that Helen of Troy is being played by Lupita Nyong'o, a black actress instead of a white Greek actress. Helen is one of the most important characters in the Odyssey. Her beauty plays a huge role in the story. She was Greek. Well, okay, none of the white actors or actresses are Greek either. Matt Damon is from Massachusetts, not Crete. Anne Hathaway is of Irish descent and was born in Brooklyn, New York. And
they don't care about any of that. They're just using codes to address the black and brown actors in the film.
She certainly does not look Greek, but I'm not hearing any complaints about their casting. So if this isn't about the other actors' ethnic backgrounds, it has to be about their physical appearance, which means that conservatives just want white people. Blanket statement. If instead of Lupita Nyong'o, Christopher Nolan casts Sydney Sweeney,
oh my God, they would love it. That would be all of their wet dreams. They love her for her blue jeans races.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very keen.
The ad was insensitive because it contained dog whistles of eugenics and palm-colored nationalism.
When I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
Then I'm sure these same conservatives wouldn't have been as upset, regardless of the fact that Sydney Sweeney has no cultural ties to Greece whatsoever. In fact, I'm sure they would have been overjoyed at that casting. But then what is the point? You're kind of giving yourself away here. And listen, I'm not a huge race swap proponent myself, but not because I'm racist and think that white people are victims in any given situation, but because race swapping is a lazy way to create diversity in media. Then I would instead prefer to see people of color cast as original characters more often.
So he does know the term people of color, so why is he saying color?
That's the difference. Diversity. White people had their cake and ate it too. I don't need to see more white people in media. White people don't need to see more white people in media. Diversity is needed because it's a reflection of our everyday life, and it's a reflection of how diverse the world around us is, which is not just white. Diversity helps us out of echo chambers. It inspires our youth, and it lends a hand to fresh new stories that have been told for hundreds of years. And that's the other thing. When we're talking about historical accuracy in film and how people of color can play historically white people, but white people can't play historically people of color, there's a reason for that.
That's a lie, though. That's not true. That's never been the case. White people, white actors have always played people of color in Hollywood. Them acting like that never happened is just a straight up lie. So even defending that point is a waste of time and energy.
White stories aren't being told to uplift the white youth or inspire the next generation of white people, because white people have not historically dealt with systemic racial prejudice. So when people of color are cast in place of white people, it is because that role is not white. There is nothing culturally significant that ties a white person to that role other than their literal skin tone. Sure, historical accuracy too.
The Odyssey is a fictional tale to start with, so we're not replacing somebody that lived on this earth that was actually a person. This is a Greek epic with gods and magic and powers and titans and cyclopses. What are they crying about?
White people can't play historically or culturally black and brown roles because those roles actually have cultural weight.
But they did.
And their skin color actually means something within the context of the film. Helen of Troy was not a real person. Sure, if she was, she would most likely have had a white skin tone.
The whole point of Helen of Troy is that she was beautiful. She was the most beautiful woman on earth that launched these wars, that launched 1,000 ships. And Lupita is gorgeous. They just don't like black people.
The only important physical trait Helen of Troy requires for the story is that she is beautiful, that she has the face that launched 1,000 ships. And Lupita Nyong'o is an objectively beautiful actress, who I think plays Helen very well. And if you can't watch The Odyssey without thinking to yourself, well, technically, a black person wouldn't have been in a position of power in Greece during this time period, and that takes me out of the film entirely, then you're just obsessed with race.
A bigot, that's the better term for it.
What else to tell you? You're obsessed with race more than the people that want diversity. Now, before we move on to the next thing that conservatives had a problem with, gender ideology fatigue.
We all know that Elliot Page recently transitioned from female to male, and that's fine by me. I hope he's living his best life now and that he's happy and fulfilled. But it does create a bit of a problem when it comes to casting, because Elliot Page is 5'1" and weighs about 90.
They literally have to use AI to create their points. They use AI to put him in Brad Pitt's role as Achilles and then in Arnold Schwarzenegger's role in The Predator.
Weighs about 90 pounds soaking wet.
Interestingly enough, it seems like Critical Drinker's critique of Elliot Page's casting has less to do with them being a trans man and more to do with him being a small person.
They wouldn't have a problem if Tom Cruise was in that role and he's like 5'3". Again, they just have really stupid arguments to make their point.
What the fuck is he supposed to fight against? I mean, his own armor probably weighs more than he does.
Which I guess I'll debunk too, even though this is way easier. A lot of rumors were going around saying that Elliot Page was going to be playing Achilles. They were spreading the news like wildfire, comparing Page's casting to when Brad Pitt played Achilles in the movie Troy, trying to point out how much larger in size and more accurately built Brad Pitt is to take on the role. This argument was funny for two reasons. One, because it's clear that conservatives were trying to bring up this movie to say, oh, look how accurate we used to make our Greek adaptations before woke took over the world. Like everyone didn't hate this movie before conservatives had a reason to bring it up again. And the other reason this argument is funny is because Elliot Page isn't even playing Achilles. He's playing a soldier named Sinon, which brings up the critical drinker argument, which is that Elliot Page is too small to play a Greek soldier. What, like any Greek soldier? Let's just forget that the Odyssey is not real for 1 second. You don't think that a single Greek soldier was the same size and height as Elliot Page, like ever in Greek history?
The moment he's on screen amongst other men, he's gonna look like a small, malnourished child playing at soldiers.
Not that I think Elliot Page looks malnourished, because I don't, but you don't think Greek soldiers were ever malnourished? When they were off at war? When the soldiers were lost at sea for years, you don't think the lack of food made them look smaller? I mean, I don't like to call people names, but maybe you're just a dumb person. Maybe you're just stupid. Now, if we're talking about the transphobic argument that conservatives used, they were basically saying that Elliot Page is a trans man, therefore he cannot play a cis man. So they're just being transphobic. There's not much to argue there. I mean, these were the arguments that we're dealing with here. Helen of Troy is black and there's a trans man in the movie. That's literally it. Besides, I guess, Zendaya fatigue, but I told you the critical drinker was really grasping at straws here.
Not only is she in 4 separate high-profile movies this year alone, plus Euphoria on TV, but she also seems to be getting lavished with so much news coverage and fake praise that it's becoming exhausting.
It's super hypocritical. He doesn't have a problem with Timothée Chalamet or her other co-star Tom Holland being cast in a bunch of different films and receiving praise. He has a problem with the black actress because he doesn't like her.
You're tired of Zendaya, you hate movies too. But these arguments are simply trite. It's the same right-wing rhetoric we hear all the time. There's too much diversity. DEI is taking over the world. Wokeness is killing our children. But how did the movie actually do?
The Odyssey is predicted to generate $80 to $100 million domestically this weekend. Add another $100 million overseas, and it could be a $200 million opening weekend for this polished turd.
It did really well. It did very well and is still continuing to soar past expectations.
Yeah, I think it's at like 680 million right now or something like that. It's currently at 652 million. And of course, it's going to take a hit because of the Spider-Man opening weekend. I think it's already pre-sold like 800 million. But people that are going to be interested in the Odyssey will see the Odyssey no matter what, even though it has a Spider-Man competition. So it's over $500 million right now for a Greek epic, which they said was dead a long time ago.
Not only did the Odyssey do well, it's also a fantastic movie. As someone who had their own Greek mythology phase in life and read both the Iliad and the Odyssey, the movie was something I needed. However, it is breaking the online conservative right, and honestly, that's just another plus of the movie. The Daily Wire is falling apart at the seams, with Ben Shapiro defending the movie and Matt Walsh tearing it apart.
Matt Walsh is terrible. He's been doing these retellings of American history to try to whitewash how bad racism was, how bad slavery was, how bad the murder of Emmett Till was. He's been doing this lately, and historians have literally been giving him belt to ass, but he keeps talking. And again, it's to his racist right-wing echo chamber, so they don't care about the truth anyway. But he's despicable.
Walsh tearing it apart. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, and without giving anything away, there are a lot of conservative themes that are based upon and relate to Christian values. Things like when you sin and have to repent from those sins, a strong messaging of family values, and a lot of the women and women of color roles just being restrained or less involved. Joel P. Christensen, editor of the Oxford Critical Guide to Homer's Odyssey, said, "I'm really disturbed that so much of the conversation has been about how woke or progressive this film was going to be. I actually think it's a very conservative film. The roles for women are constrained. The interracial casting is women of color who just get to be married to white men, which is not progressive." Even Emily Wilson, the writer of the Odyssey that Nolan based his film off of, critiques this film adaptation quite a bit.
I'm not sure if I see it as an entirely anti-war film, but it certainly presents us with an Odysseus who feels very bad about certain things that he's done in war and is struggling to process them in a very, I would say, very modern, psychiatrized way. He has to make the protagonist a likable all-American hero.
But to now find out that Emily Wilson might actually think that the Odyssey is too woke or too modern, conservatives have nothing left to stand on. On top of this, the complaints about the casting choices don't hold as much weight as conservatives initially thought, because guess what? Both Lupita Nyong'o and Elliot Page were barely fucking in the movie. These are facts about the Odyssey, which is that Elliot Page has 5 minutes and 30 seconds of screen time, and Lupita Nyong'o has 3 minutes and 42 seconds of screen time.
Which also makes sense if you know the Odyssey, because the Odyssey isn't really about Troy. It's about everything that happened after Troy.
Screen time. Which begs the question, why were the actors so prominent in the advertising for this film?
They weren't. People just picked them out of trailers, like 2 seconds in trailers, and made this a huge thing.
They actually weren't prominent in the advertising of the film? You just want a reason to freak out over colored and queer people.
Stop saying colored.
So ultimately, the Odyssey is putting conservatives in a corner and making them fight it out. On one side, you have the conservatives who are doubling down on the Odyssey, being nothing more than woke garbage doing its DEI due diligence to secure Oscar buzz. On the other side, you have the conservatives joining the public and praising Nolan's work while also trying to slight right-wingers for panicking over nothing. And then somewhere in the middle, you have the conservatives whose programming is failing them.
I'm not going to give money to this movie. That would be part of the problem. Like, is it so hard to say from a principled stance?
They're so mad that it's being reviewed higher than Lord of the Rings, which is an actual classic movie, but an all-white cast Lord of the Rings. They're mad that a diverse movie is being reviewed higher.
From a principled stance, I refuse to engage in this piece of culture. Okay, I don't like Taylor Swift. I don't like the messages she sends to young women. I don't like the WNBA. I don't like kneeling for the national anthem.
He has all imaginary problems. What does any of that have to do with anything?
Therefore, I won't be giving them any of my money.
People like Benny Johnson here, who are so used to having one-dimensional, simple, spoon-fed rhetoric to feed to their viewers, are now left like confused, lost sheep without their shepherd.
Their brains are glitching out. They can't think for themselves, and they can't make an actual logical argument against a film that was supposed to be so diverse and so liberal, but it actually turned out to not be that.
Because for once in their life, the grift requires some form of self-autonomy instead of just having to follow the conservative groupthink machine. I'll watch world-renowned film critics, Nerdrotics and The Critical Drinker for their reviews and leave it at that. Benny Johnson is a sheep that can't think for himself. But for the conservatives that are, and I can't believe I'm saying this, ballsy enough to choose a side, Ben Shapiro loves this movie. He won't shut the fuck up about it.
So I know a lot of people were like, oh my God, Lupita Nyong'o is supposed to look like Diane Kruger. I don't know, Diane Kruger doesn't look very Greek. She's German. So Lupita Nyong'o is a beautiful woman, but
wow. I mean, this just isn't something I expected. Now, Ben is still transphobic towards Elliot Page in this video.
There's just no other way to put it. Elliot Page is still a woman, and the voice is the voice of a woman. And having a woman pretending to be a youngish man telling you these things does not land in the way that it should.
I didn't let this review wash away all the bigotry I knew he had. But this perspective that Ben takes is saying that all of the conservatives panicking over this movie being garbage because woke are essentially just being performative and reactionary. And a lot of other conservatives are agreeing with him. Dave Rubin defended the Odyssey and said, "The movie was spectacular. I tweeted that it was an absolute masterpiece and the responses were psychotic." Other conservatives were even denouncing how hard the right was going at the Odyssey prior to its release. Hot take, I say this as a conservative commentator and someone who knows film criticism very well. The Odyssey would have gotten worse reviews and made less money if the online conservative machine didn't go after it so hard before it came out.
Free promotion.
While on the other end of things, we have the conservatives who are doubling down on everything they said prior to the film's release. I say this with sadness, not anger. If you bought a ticket for the Odyssey this weekend, you have surrendered the right to complain about Hollywood ruining movies. Your words and actions are not in alignment. You cannot lead others because you can't even follow yourself. Or how about Matt Walsh? Just saw the Odyssey. Despite what you may have heard, literally all of the criticisms by conservatives were entirely correct. The movie is just as woke as you fear, if not more so.
I hate that they've co-opted the term woke because that's not what it meant initially. I've discussed that a bunch of times. What woke was to the black community, staying awake, staying aware, being cautious. They've just turned it into something that's anti-diversity.
Casting is atrocious. Completely takes you out of the story right from the beginning. But even worse than that is Nolan's decision to turn Odysseus into an anachronistic, whiny, solemn shell of a man plagued by trauma and guilt. That's the same critique that Emily Wilson had. Interesting. But I think it's important to note that Ben Shapiro is siding with the public here, going against what the majority of chronically online conservatives are saying and siding with the people that think they're crazy, calling it out for what it is. an overreaction. The online right has become a place of constant distraction by directing the blame off of the real perpetuators and onto harmless and innocent parties. They've been doing this, calling films woke and sending death threats to actors of color or actresses for years now. And it's worked in the past because those movies do badly anyway.
Because a lot of them weren't good movies to start with. That's the only reason that it worked. Not because their hate or anti-diversity propaganda meant anything. They just usually weren't good movies. Like the Batwoman show that everybody hated.
Blame it entirely on woke casting. Movies like the live-action Moana or Supergirl didn't do bad because women or colored people, they did bad.
Stop saying colored.
Because they weren't good. But for whatever reason, them doing the exact same thing to a Christopher Nolan film completely backfired in their face.
It's always funny to see white supremacists, racists, and conservatives have to confront their own thoughts and feelings with actual logic. Because most times the things they're railing against doesn't make sense. Like them feeling like white people are being attacked because people of color are being cast and what would be white roles in the past. Meanwhile, white people have been playing people of color for decades in Hollywood. It's just crazy. But it's hilarious to see them all caught up and in their feelings that this film was successful, people like it, and it's one of the best reviewed movies of the year. But shout out to my channel and Patreon members. Thank you so much for supporting it. Thanks for watching. Y'all let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Also, make sure you check out the next video, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram for behind the scenes and life stuff, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.